It's great to be sitting here on Monday of game week, knowing that obviously we're one step closer to being able to kick off on Saturday. Really proud of the hard work our football teams put in, not just during training camp, but going all the way back to the beginning of the offseason with the winter workout program, spring practice, transitioning into summer workouts, and then getting where we're at here with 25 practices prior to our first game. So like what I've seen out of our football team day in, day out, had a great approach to training camp and trying to attack every day. When you only get one practice a day, you got to make sure you come in here and make it count. We've had a very competitive training camp here. We've had some great additions to our program. Just to be able to see those guys transition, our veteran players, welcome them into our program and really make them feel at home, make them feel like a family. So here we are. Obviously the players are off today, but excited to get back out and truly get into what will be a game week mode starting tomorrow morning with meetings and practice. And still got some good days ahead of us here to work and get things ironed out. But make no mistake, on Friday when it's time to get on the bus and head to Lexington, our football team and our staff will be excited to take on a great opponent.
Like I said, playing games like Tennessee, Penn State, it's a great experience, but usually what are some other takeaways you get from playing in those big-time games?
It's just a great opportunity. A lot of our guys certainly have perhaps could have somebody they went to high school with or somebody they met during the recruiting process back in high school that plays for those respective programs. So it's a great opportunity for us to play against a team in the SEC that's really been so consistent week in, week out, every single year, and to look and see what Mark Stoops has done in 7 straight years now where they've been to a bowl game. So I really look at him with the utmost respect because of what he's built Kentucky into. And it's a great opportunity for our guys. And we know that it's all about execution for us. We got to go play high-level football, execute at a high level, make sure that we win the turnover battle and not beat ourselves that way. But again, a lot of confidence in our football team. We're just really focused on the one play at a time mentality, and let's go stack up 4 quarters of play.
And then you just talked about that one play mentality. Playing in this big environment as well in an SEC territory, what goes into preparing other than that one-step mentality?
Yeah, other than us putting a game plan together as a coaching staff in all 3 phases to make sure we give our guys a chance to go execute. Could it be louder than what we're practicing against? Certainly we don't play a preseason game, so you got to be ready to communicate if it does get noisy, whether it's silent communication, whatever it may be. But you got to be able to operate. We practiced multiple practices here back in spring and training camp here, trying to make it as loud and obnoxious as we can possibly make it, so guys truly have to focus. If you can't hear, you got to watch the football. So those are things that you prepare for when you're playing in an environment where perhaps the noise could be a little louder. So, but our guys have done that. We got a lot of guys here that have been in games where there have been noisy environments. So I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to get that handled.
Coach, as you get closer to game week and the players have today off and then got a couple practices coming up, kind of towards the end of last week or even before that, has the atmosphere started to change where guys are starting to really get excited and get a buzz for week 1 being so soon? Yeah,
here the great thing, you get to a point in training camp where you get so sick of going against each other because you know his moves, you're going against the same guys every day. The newness of that when training camp starts, that starts to wear off. So as soon as you flip the switch and you start focusing all your team periods in practice on preparing for Kentucky, then you get scout teams involved, and then you're truly focusing on the game plan and going out and execute, building confidence in your game plan. So when you start to shift the focus in practice to those scout team periods and truly preparing for Kentucky, you can just see the smile, the attitude, the intensity level, like it's time now. Now we're really starting to focus on getting ourselves ready to play a game and not working against each other every day. So you could see that start to happen late last week when we started to really focus on Kentucky.
Yeah, the kind of the roster and the depth chart was sent out today, and it's kind of been made official that Samanza will be quarterback 2. what was that decision-making process like when you have 3 guys who are capable?
Yeah, and I think the credit goes to those guys. For Caden to come in here as a true freshman, he got here back in January, which was certainly helpful for his development because he got a chance to learn the offense. He got a chance to go through the off-season workout program. He put on 20 pounds first and foremost, which is a remarkable job by our strength and conditioning staff, and did it the right way. But he earned reps, and he made it very challenging here throughout training camp with the things he was doing day in, day out in practice. And I think what it came down to more than anything is here's a guy that's got 4 years of starting experience, and they're in a kind of heated deadlock battle. So, having Lane be in the starting quarterback week 1 is certainly because he earned it. Number one, it was a kind of a dead heat every day in practice, as we got to that midway point of training camp. So, but Caden knows, man, he's got to be ready to go. He got to be ready to go, and he's learned a lot from Lane since both of them arrived here in January, but just helping him prepare when you're not in the building. What's that look like? What's studying film on your own look like? And I think that's been an invaluable tool that Lane's been able to help share with all the quarterbacks, not just Caden.
Yeah, there may not be a huge gap, but was there a certain thing that impressed you about Samanza that had you decide to put him at QB2 over Kyle?
Yeah, and I think more than anything, just he is a very talented thrower, very talented. He locates the ball at a high level. He had a very good foundation when he came in here of football knowledge. He had a good understanding of coverages, had a good understanding, because he played high-level high school football. So I think it's just a credit to him for coming in, embracing the competition, knowing that there's only one starter, and so you got to make the most of your reps. He did that, and talking about Kyle, there's 3 different types of skill sets there, and so Kyle is going to play a lot of football for us, and that'll be in several different roles.
Yeah, kind of from what limited practice or time around the team I've spent over training camp and things like that, the word that sticks out to me about the atmosphere that surrounds the team is hunger. You've obviously seen the team progress from the end of last season throughout the winter and spring and now training camp with week 1 staring you in the face. What's kind of the defining trait about Ball State football going into this year?
No, I would piggyback off the hunger. I think guys went into the offseason with a chip on their shoulder and very, very hungry. We played in 7 one-possession games in the Mid-American Conference last year. Obviously, we lost 4 of those one-possession games. So when there's a fine line between winning and losing, there's something else that we can do as a program just a little bit better to change the outcome of that. Starting with, we have to win the turnover margin. And the last month of the season, we didn't get that done. The last 3 games of the year, we didn't get that done. And we played really good opponents that beat us. But we can help fix that. We've tried to focus on it every day. We don't get to play against a real opponent. So how high can we turn the stakes in practice to try to work on ball security? Besides preaching it, what can we do in practice to work on that? And obviously decision-making, that falls a lot on the quarterback, certainly during training camp. But you got to make good decisions. You can't throw the ball to our opponent. There's a time and place to throw the ball away. That's also a good play. So that's all part of it. And I think that's where the hunger comes from. Our guys know that we can play with anybody, but we got to be really good at the details. We got to be really confident when we take the field. We got to believe that we can line up and beat anybody that we're playing.
Coach, I know you're not done with prep for Kentucky, but what's your kind of just evaluation of their team and maybe some of the biggest keys to the game coming up?
Yeah, and I think starting with, obviously, you look at them from a defensive standpoint. If they weren't the number 1 defense in the SEC, they were number 2, or one of the top defensive teams in the country for sure. They return a lot of guys on that defense are returning. Obviously, they got to replace both of the corners, but this is a very good defensive football team that got some all-conference players, some freshman All-Americans from a year ago, and so it's going to be a great challenge that way for our guys. When you can hold, the national champions a year ago in Georgia to 16 points, that speaks a lot about your defense holding opponents to 20 points or less per game. So going to be a great challenge. They got a few new pieces, if you will, from an offensive standpoint. Liam Cohen comes back as the offensive coordinator. He was there in 2021 when they had 10 wins and scored 32 points a game. Obviously, Devin Leary joins their program from after having a great career at NC State. So they've got some great pieces that they did a great job in the transfer portal adding some key pieces. Certainly we're familiar with a couple of the players, from Northern Illinois, having played against them and prepared against them in our conference. So I think they've done as good of a job as anybody of utilizing the transfer portal to add some key pieces to their program. But I just look at the body of work that Mark Stoops has put in since his arrival at Kentucky, and they are a team that is very consistent. Every single year they're going to play well in all three phases, and they're hungry to get back to that 10-win where they were at a couple years ago, and certainly I know they feel strongly about their personnel and their football team and what they've done so far this offseason and so far in training camp. So it's we've watched Kentucky tirelessly, and it's going to be a great challenge. They played against two MAC teams a year ago that we're very familiar with, so you draw on every game that you can to try to find a way to give yourself an edge through the game plan piece of it.
Yeah, and obviously you talked about the turnovers and red zone execution from last year. You guys want to improve, but anything specifically for not give too much away, but like for week one that you really want to see your team kind of execute well?
No, and I think that's the one thing you have. Yeah, you watch every game film from Kentucky a year ago, just like they've done. They've watched our game films from a year ago. It's still a new year with a new team, so you got to really focus on the things that you feel like are a strength for your football team. What do you do well offensively right now? What do you do well defensively right now? What do you do well on special teams? And you got to go into an environment like this against a great opponent in the SEC and an unbelievable conference, and you got to hang your hat on the things that you do really well so that your guys have confidence, so that they believe when they step out on that field for a noon kickoff on Saturday. So it's a lot about Kentucky, but certainly it's just as much about us. Making sure our guys are put in a position where they can go execute at a high level and be confident with what's being called throughout the day on Saturday.
And I know bumps and bruises throughout camp happen. We talked a little bit about Brady last week. I know Clayton had that hamstring last week. I think Woodard missed practice. Any injury updates you can give? Yeah,
and those three guys that you mentioned there, certainly Clayton Call, Brady Hunt, Tavion Woodard, those guys are really kind of in a day-to-day status. Been back out on the practice field. So we'll just take it day by day here. Obviously, they've done a great job being committed to their treatment process and all that stuff, and doing what our training staff will allow them to do in practice, because certainly don't want to put them at risk of being in any longer term than what it is right now. So we'll just be day to day with those guys, and certainly make sure our guys that are in roles behind them are ready to go in the event their number's called.
And last one for me. Obviously, two position groups that had a lot of turnover from last year were receiver and DB, and obviously, like you said, the depth chart came out today. So, any insight you can provide on how those kind of lineups shook out?
Yeah, and I think, first of all, starting with the defensive backs, everybody talks about our two corners and our safety from a year ago that all graduated. Nick Jones was drafted. A.J. Uzodinma signed with the Chargers. Jaquan Amos signed with the Ravens. But we also returned some guys, and Red Potts, who's played a lot of football. He's been at Ball State a long time. He played half the year last year as a starter, so very confident in Red Potts. Damian Charity, that joined our program from Old Dominion. He's played a lot of football in his career, and so it's no stage is new to him, and he's done a great job of picking up the playbook since he's arrived here, picking up the defense. You look at Jordan Riley, you look at Lauren Strickland, Al-Jariq Mallory, who joined our program from VMI. Those guys have done a great job, and they've got real very, very extensive college game experience. So I feel very good about where our depth chart's at with the secondary, based on what everybody probably thinks outside of our building, losing three guys to the NFL. So really like where we're at. And then flipping over to receiver, just proud of I think about guys like Ty Robinson, Malcolm Gilly, Ahmad Edwards, that were all new additions to our program, whether it be in January, whether it be the summertime. And again, you can see their maturity. You can see the way how quickly they pick things up and just making plays on the practice field. So I think they've done a great job with their transition here, starting to build a really good rapport with the quarterback group overall. And really like where they're at. And even I think about Keon Magwood had an unbelievable training camp with what he was able to do, and very proud of him for that. And there's going to be several guys in that group that end up seeing the field for us. And I think even though we might lack some production, if you will, in terms of stats, I think there's a lot of guys there that feel very confident what they've been doing through spring practice, what they've been doing through training camp.
Final question, anybody? All right, stand by and I'll bring in Ethan and Clayton.
All right, awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, obviously, week one, just how excited, I guess, just is the team to finally face someone new?
Very. I think you hear it every August. Guys are tired of going against each other, going against your own teammates. There's a lot of weeks you spend all summer together, but then you get into fall camp and it's kind of you versus them for a while, and now you kind of get into the Kentucky prep and you're really excited to play somebody new, excited to do something a little different, excited to travel, go down to Kentucky and start the season off.
I know you guys are still doing prep for Kentucky, but what is your evaluation of them at this point? How do you feel what are the things you need to kind of stop in their offense?
Of Kentucky?
Yeah.
Really just understanding of who their offensive coordinator is, where he came from. They're going to try to run the ball on us. They've made that very clear. They kind of, maybe not on us, but it's very clear that they want to run the ball. Offensive line wise, I think they're trying to take pride in that. They brought in a pretty good running back out of Vanderbilt, and then they're going to take shots. They're going to take some deep shots and explosive plays. So for us, it's just, how gap sound can we be up front, and how disciplined can we be on the back end to be all on the same page and communicate at a high level.
How do you feel like the defense throughout camp and practice has kind of progressed in maybe just overall since day one?
Yeah, I mean, this is I can confidently say that I'm surrounded by some of the best players I've ever played with here. Depth-wise, personality-wise, team-wise, this is a really good group of guys to play with. We got some really good football players and guys that just love to play football. So I couldn't be more happy with kind of where we are defensively right now. Obviously, there's always room to get better and keep improving, but I'm really pleased with how we're playing, and I'm really excited for us to really start clicking and really get in the groove of the season.
And I know you missed at least one practice last week. I think Coach said it was like a hamstring tweak. How are you feeling? Are you back at practice?
I feel great. I'm full go. I'm ready to roll. Just a small thing. Not a big deal. I've dealt with it before, but I'm ready to roll.
You kind of have those injuries week one. Obviously, you're ready to go and you're expected to play. When you have those, I guess, in training camp, does that affect anything at all, even if you miss a day?
No, I don't think so. I've played a lot of football. I've been around here for a while and had a chance to play a lot of football games. No, I don't notice it. I take great priority and a lot of pride in investing myself in the film room and standing back at practice and getting those mental reps. You got to kind of have the discipline and the maturity to take those mental reps and not just be a bystander in practice. And I felt personally like I've continued to do that. And I've watched a lot of film, and I feel really confident where we're at defensively.
Yeah. I remember last year in the press room after the Tennessee game, you were just talking about how good of an experience it was despite the loss. You've played in a lot of big games before. What else do you kind of get out of those games? The physicality kind of goes without saying. The experience kind of goes without saying. But what else are you getting out of games against a Kentucky or a Georgia?
I feel like I kind of go back to the same answer when I get these questions back at home, golfing with my buddies, hanging out. I kind of get this question often. And for me, it's like that little kid, that college football fan that grew up watching every Saturday, watching nonstop with my brothers and my dad. I enjoy those moments because I grew up watching it over and over again, and I dreamed of playing in games like this, and I dreamed of playing Division I football, and I am here at Ball State. But there is something to be said about a Big Ten, about the SEC. Those games are awesome. I try to embrace it as much as, okay, this is an experience. A little me and my brothers when we were younger would be dying right now at this experience. So I just try to, take it a day to day and just be like, wow, I'm really playing the game that I love. And then when we get out there in that pregame warm up, it's back to just, this is football. Let's go play.
Yeah. You've talked about just how you've played a lot of football here and things like that. You're viewed as a leader of this entire team. After kind of a disappointing last season, do you feel like this is a defining year for you guys?
Yeah, I think you could say that about any year, really. I think that there's a lot that we've left on the table. It hurts to say it, but we went 5-7 my freshman year, MAC championship the year after, 6-7 the year after that, and then another 5-7 season. It's like we're a few games away from being a totally different career. You look at that 21 season, that field goal that NIU kicked that went on to win the MAC that year. You look at last year, you look at being 21-21 with Toledo. They go on and win the MAC championship. They beat us 28-21. You can say defining for us, for me, as my career, I want to leave this place with a legacy and with a lot for these younger guys to look up to and say that that's how it was done, that's the standard. I want to be a multi-time MAC champion. I want to be a multi-time bowl game winner because not very many guys in this program can say that, and not very many people in college football can say that. So it's just, for me, I want to leave this place better than I left it, and I think we are on the way by far doing that. But I want to win football games and have a lot of fun with this team because I know this team can go as far as we want to take it.
Yeah. It seems like the big thing this year, as far as closing that gap that you're talking about being so close, is the turnover margin.
Yeah.
How do you guys, as a defense, as a whole, how are you approaching the season and accomplishing that?
I think first off, it starts with your mentality. Like, you got to have the mentality that we're going to go take the ball. You can't just, kind of talk about it like, hey, we should, it's got to be a very strong mentality. And then our coaching staff has really put it upon us in practice and really emphasized it. And then a lot of it just comes to making the plays. There was turnovers there that we had that we just didn't quite make the plays. So some of it is, mentality and putting that, ingraining that in us to go attack and get more. But then part of it is just make the plays that come to you. We preach a lot about tips and overthrows. Like, we're going to get chances to make plays. They're going to put the ball up in the air or on the ground for us to go. So let's just utilize that the best we can. But the turnover margin is 100% a factor.
Absolutely.
Anything left for Clayton? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
I'll hand you my phone in a second. Thank you, Clayton.
You gonna say
good?
Yeah, I'm going to text you.
Just call him.
Ethan, obviously, especially when you're playing a bigger program sometimes in college football, the battle in the trenches is some of the biggest differences between those, Group of Five and Power Five programs. How are you guys kind of approaching this challenge against Kentucky?
We're approaching this like any other week. It's just the trenches. We're gonna go. We're just gonna move people off the ball. As simple as that. Really try to work hard and make sure to press and keep the quarterback safe and protection and stuff like that.
Anything evaluation-wise that Kentucky's front seven does that you kind of noticed or game plan?
I'll say nothing really crazy. We have a game plan, going into it, but it's really just going to be we're going to run the ball, we're going to pass the ball, simple as that. And as the offensive line, we're going to do what we do is run the ball and pass the ball and protect, push people off the ball.
And since we talked about it, I think last week, but having that experience coming back, does that just help the overall offensive line just feel more comfortable going into an environment like this?
Oh yeah, I definitely say experience is a big thing, especially going into these big games, just because it's nice to look to your buddy left and right, knowing that we've been in this position before, nothing's changed, nothing's different, so it's just go out there and play football.
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of blue and white in the stands, but Kentucky isn't that far away from Muncie. Even last year, when I went down to the Tennessee game, there was a decent amount of Ball State fans there. Do you expect the same thing for week one?
Oh yeah, I've already heard a lot of players that we're already trying to find tickets for our families and friends. They already plan on making the trip, so I think there's going to be a decent amount of red in that stadium.
Does that help at all? Does that bring an added advantage when you've got red in an away game?
Yeah, sometimes it does. The bigger stadium, it's it's Kentucky, so they're obviously going to fill out the majority, but it is nice to look in the stands and see that you got your own my family will be there. It's good to see that fans are they're coming to the game and supporting us no matter where we are.
Yeah. Obviously, it's been said by Coach Neu and Clayton. I'm sure everybody's tired of kind of going up against each other in practice. You guys are chomping at the bit for week one, but every year, how do you mentally and physically prepare yourself for something different than the same guys?
Basically, those guys are going to give me the looks that we need to be able to go from week one and then all the way to week 12, stuff like that.
Has the atmosphere around the locker room changed in the past few days as you guys are a week away and now less? Are people getting excited and really anticipating?
Oh yeah, everyone's really excited because now instead of just camp, we're just hitting each other all for the entire camp. finally get to hit new people. So it's exciting. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Obviously, as a leader of the offense, everything around you has kind of changed throughout the offseason, with really the exception of the tight end group and the offensive line. Have you, I guess, how have you seen the offense progress and develop a chemistry from winter when the guys transfer, come into the program, to spring, to training camp, to now? What's the journey and the chemistry been like?
I feel like it's really, whenever transfers or new people come in, I feel like we accept them. Like, they feel at home as soon as they get here. But going through winter, I mean, those workouts, I mean, they're brutal. So, I mean, you guys bond over that. Then you got spring ball, and it's just, you're just going out there and playing football with each other. So that's good to know, like, what everybody's made of. And then summer, more workouts, and then kind of just hanging out with each other during summer, get to know everybody. And then camp, you really get to see what everybody's made of. So I think offenses really came together and grown as a group.
Yeah. I guess just lastly, if you're an offensive lineman and you've got a guy in Hatcher, although he's new to this program, he's got a lot of experience playing in big games and starting at quarterback, does that help kind of bring the entire offense at ease when you've got a guy like that under center?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Just because this guy has been through it all. He's played in those big games before. He's got a lot of game experience. So anybody with game experience, I tend to believe, like, they know what they're doing, and, like, makes me more relaxed. Like, something hits the fan out there, like, everybody's cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
I would say you've played in these big games before, like Tennessee and Penn State. Other than just the cool experience and being there and playing the big-time atmosphere, what are you guys as the O-line really going to take from this experience?
I think as O-line, this group, I think we have a really good offensive line. So we're really going to see what we can really do against an SEC opponent. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. We'll get to see what we can actually do with it.
Thanks, Ethan.
That's good with you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Have fun, Clint.